The president just passed 500 days in office, and he may have reached a critical moment. The latest CBS News poll shows 38% of Americans approve of the way the Obama administration is handling the oil spill, but more, 44%, disapprove. For some perspective tonight, we're joined from Austin, Texas by presidential historian, author, and CBS News consultant Douglas Brinkley. Doug, always good to see you. Let's start with a big picture question here. Where is the president at 500 days in, and how important is this moment right now?
Well, I think the president wanted to have a kind of New Deal or New Great Society legislative record. The health care debate ate up his clock. He fought hard for an entire year, eventually got some legislation through. It was hoping to get on a momentum roll, and then boom, the BP spill happened. The president seemed slow out of the gate. People were wondering who's in charge of foreign company BP or the White House, and it was a bad few weeks for him. There seemed to have been a rebound by the president, a bit of momentum he's gaining now in the crisis after the top kill failed and after Memorial Day weekend, and he's starting to use more vigorous language, starting to treat this as the largest environmental disaster in American history, what it is. And he went down now 3 times to the Gulf region, reaching out to people, most recently to hug and talk to the fishermen and try to pull through. The region is in deep trouble, and it's hurt Obama's ratings.
Doug, you think the president has a chance here to really make a statement, to make a point beyond just trying to fix the leak itself? What is that?
Well, President Theodore Roosevelt used to always say that the main job of a president, besides the safety of its people, its citizens, is defending the natural resources of the United States. And we are looking at our great fisheries, our nursery for oysters and crab, our great Mississippi River bird flyway being devastated right now. We've yet to hear a conservation speech from this president who comes forward and tells us what the Gulf of Mexico means to us as a nation, recalls perhaps what happened to California with the Santa Barbara spill, and then when Lake Erie was on fire in the 60s and early 1970s, and come forward here with the vision of how we can save the marine life of the Gulf South. For example, Everglades has been deteriorating. The wetlands of Florida are in bad shape. While Louisiana's are being destroyed now, he could put 1.5 to 1.7 billion and do Everglades restoration immediately. There's money needed at Ding Darling National Wildlife Refuge in Florida, meaning birds don't just know that they're going to, they don't know borders, they don't know Louisiana. It's an ecosystem, and there are things that the president could do now in a preservationist environmental vein that would mean a great deal to the future viability of that region as one of our great wildlife resource places.
Doug, is it possible or even probable that the oil spill defines the president's legacy?
There's no question that this is the big event in American history. How the presidents act in a time of crisis is how historians will regard them. And we're at really only midway, maybe even not that far through the BP spill. So the president has an opportunity here to seize this by the scruff of the neck, let the American people know he's in charge, use the full throttle of the Justice Department against BP, who has one of the worst environmental records of any major company, and make this a learning moment. It's not enough right now just to say that we're going to fight for energy legislation. The president has to talk about defending America's great seashores, its bird rookeries, its great fisheries, and he seems to be doing a better job with people, as you'd expect from a grassroots organizer from Chicago, reaching out to the people of Louisiana, but he hasn't done anything that is pleasing the environmental community or people who care about the Gulf of Mexico and the Mississippi River Delta. This needs to be a moment of protection, not just a moment of kind of, let's get this thing capped and do a quick cleanup and forget about it. The damage being done in the Gulf of Mexico now is going to be felt for a decade, 2 decades, maybe longer. The president needs to address that in my belief.
Doug, right now, is the president shaping events or being shaped by them?
I think he was being shaped by the event. Look, he was on a roll with the health care legislation. There was a great hope that before the election he was going to get some things done in Washington. This hit, and I think for President Obama, the spill was an inconvenience. You kind of wanted to farm it out. It was BP's problem. But over a period of time, when Tony Hayward, the CEO of BP, made a series of ridiculous comments that insulted the people of Louisiana and the Gulf South, and then you had governors like Bobby Jindal of Louisiana demanding berms and saying the federal government wasn't doing enough, the president had to click into gear. He started doing that. He's doing it now. But there's no such thing as spending too much time in the Gulf South right now. You don't want to be Jimmy Carter, holed up in the White House during the Iran hostage crisis. This is not a time to be seen dealing with other issues. The president rightfully has canceled a trip to Asia. He's stopping a lot of other appearances that he's planned to focus on this right now because there are many parts of it. And the cleanup effort needs to be coordinated in a way that future generations will say an awful thing happened in the Gulf of Mexico, but the Obama administration marshaled the strength of the American people and did the greatest environmental cleanup the world has ever seen.
Doug, as you know, the president has made some increasingly critical comments about BP. Does this ultimately become a battle of the president versus BP?
It should never be that. President Obama represents the United States of America. We are the power. BP is nothing but a little fly-speck company. Some people think they're big, but they're nothing compared to the power of the United States. President Obama has to tell BP what to do. Yes, they have to cap the well and do the containment. Yes, they're going to be paying for a lot of the cleanup. But the authority of this crisis has to emanate from the White House, not from Tony Hayward's cricket club outside of London.
Doug, interesting article running in the New York Times tomorrow that says, quote, the problem here for Mr. Obama is that almost 18 months after assuming office, he still seems to regard himself as something of an intellectual critic of government, when in fact, and it continues, the president embodies the government he once assailed and is held accountable, fairly or not, for its failures. Is the president too detached? Is that just his personality?
One of the great aspects of President Obama is he's cerebral. He's knowledgeable about what's going on. I have no doubt that he spends every hour micro-studying what's going on in the Gulf. But part of leadership is to get on the back of the flatbed Ford and rally the country with the speech, rally the country with oratory. It's not about being angry at BP. It's saying never again. And we're seeing some signs of that, President Obama. He seems reluctant at it. But he's fired Elizabeth Birnbaum, the head of MMS, for culpability of not enforcing and being lax with the environmental standards needed in offshore drilling. We're seeing a tougher President Obama when he sent Eric Holder, our Attorney General, to New Orleans and is starting to say we may take criminal charges against BP. And he's rightfully put a moratorium, a big pause on further offshore exploration on sacred landscapes like the Chesapeake of Virginia or Arctic Alaska, where our polar bear denning area is. So he's doing a lot of right things, but he's going to have to package these together with the kind of government tidal wave here. This is a turning point in history that we're living in right now. We've been talking for a decade about global warming and energy and oil independence. All bets have been wiped out of the table here. What we need is a president that's emotive, that's smart, and that's determined to make this a moment that we're going to be able to be proud of decades from now, that our children's children will say when the Gulf of Mexico got destroyed by a oil company not following laws and regulations, the President of the United States stepped into the fray and led America into a new, smart direction. And so the verdict is still out. Although many of us are getting BP fatigued, the crisis is really still at its early stages. We're just starting to see the wildlife devastation and the oil on sea turtles and porpoises and egrets and terns and gulls. And those images are going to start coming in, and the president's going to have to suddenly, the urban president from Chicago is going to have to become the environmental president of the moment.
Doug Brinkley joining us from Austin, Texas. Doug, always good to see you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jeff.